Norway's history begins with the retreat of glaciers around 10,000 BCE, when the first hunter-gatherer societies arrived. Archaeological evidence from sites like Alta reveals sophisticated rock art dating back 6,000 years, depicting hunting scenes and religious ceremonies. The Sami people, Norway's indigenous population, established themselves in the northern regions, developing a rich culture based on reindeer herding, fishing, and shamanistic traditions. During the Bronze Age, trade networks emerged connecting Norway to continental Europe. The discovery of bronze artifacts far from production centers demonstrates early Norwegian participation in international commerce. The Iron Age brought technological advances and the emergence of petty kingdoms, setting the stage for the Viking Age that would define Norway's early medieval period. The Viking Age represents Norway's most internationally recognized historical period. Norwegian Vikings, driven by overpopulation, political conflicts, and the lure of wealth, launched expeditions across Europe and beyond. They established settlements in Iceland, Greenland, and briefly in North America, while also raiding monasteries and trading centers throughout Western Europe. Harald Fairhair achieved the first significant unification of Norway around 872 CE, following his victory at the Battle of Hafrsfjord. This consolidation forced many chieftains to flee, leading to the settlement of Iceland and other territories. Harald's descendants established the foundation of Norwegian royal authority, though the kingdom remained fragmented and contested. The conversion to Christianity began in earnest under Olav Tryggvason and was largely completed under Olav II Haraldsson. Saint Olav's death at the Battle of Stiklestad in 1030 made him a martyr and Norway's patron saint, symbolizing the triumph of Christianity over paganism. His stepson Magnus the Good and later Harald Hardrada continued consolidating royal power and Christian institutions. The Viking Age effectively ended with Harald Hardrada's death at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066. Marking Norway's transition from a raiding society to a medieval European kingdom. Under Magnus VI, Norway achieved its greatest territorial extent, controlling Iceland, Greenland, the Faroe Islands, Shetland, Orkney, and parts of Scotland and Ireland. The medieval period saw Norway develop into a major European power. The establishment of a national law code in 1274 demonstrated sophisticated legal and administrative development. The 13th century marked Norway's golden age. Bergen became a major trading center, connecting Arctic resources like fish, furs, and ivory to European markets. The Hanseatic League established a significant presence in Bergen, creating both economic prosperity and eventual dependency on German merchants. The Black Death struck Norway in 1349, killing an estimated one-third to one-half of the population. This demographic catastrophe weakened the kingdom economically and politically, contributing to the eventual loss of independence. The noble class was particularly devastated, reducing resistance to foreign influence. While maintaining nominal independence, real power shifted to Copenhagen. In 1380, Norway entered a personal union with Denmark through the marriage of Olav IV, mother Margaret, to Danish King Håkon VI. This union, later including Sweden in the Kalmar Union, gradually subordinated Norway to Danish control. The Protestant Reformation arrived in 1537, imposed by Danish authorities and replacing Catholic institutions with Lutheran ones. The union with Sweden ended in 1523, but Norway remained under Danish control for nearly 3 more centuries. The discovery of silver at Kongsberg in 1623 provided significant revenue, while the forestry industry made Norway valuable to Denmark. The Kalmar Union theoretically united Denmark, Norway, and Sweden under a single monarch while preserving each kingdom's laws and institutions. In practice, Danish interests dominated, and Norway increasingly became a Danish province. During this period, Norway experienced both challenges and developments. The Dano-Norwegian state engaged in numerous conflicts, including the Northern 7 Years' War, and various conflicts with Sweden. The 17th century brought economic growth through timber exports and mining. However, Norwegian cultural identity persisted despite political subordination, maintained through folk traditions, distinctive dialects, and local governance structures. The Great Northern War devastated much of Norway, with Swedish invasions causing widespread destruction. Christian Frederick, the Danish prince governing Norway, was elected king. The war's aftermath saw increased centralization of Danish-Norwegian administration and the gradual erosion of traditional Norwegian institutions. The Napoleonic Wars dramatically altered Norway's fate. Denmark-Norway's alliance with France led to British naval blockades and economic hardship. When Napoleon fell in 1814, the Treaty of Kiel awarded Norway to Sweden as compensation for Sweden's lost Finnish territories. Rather than accepting this transfer, Norwegian leaders convened at Eidsvoll and drafted a constitution on May 17, 1814. This document, largely based on the American and French constitutions, established Norway as an independent kingdom with a parliamentary system. The brief independence lasted only months. Swedish forces invaded, and after a short war, the Convention of Moss established a personal union between Sweden and Norway. Crucially, Sweden accepted the Norwegian constitution with modifications, allowing Norway considerable autonomy while sharing a monarch. The Union period witnessed remarkable Norwegian development despite political constraints. The 19th century brought industrialization, population growth, and cultural renaissance. The economy diversified from traditional agriculture and fishing to include shipping, timber processing, and early manufacturing. Norwegian culture flourished during this period. The language question became central to national identity, with Ivar Aasen developing Nynorsk based on rural dialects, while urban educated classes used riksmål, closer to Danish. Writers like Henrik Ibsen and Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson gained international recognition, while composer Edvard Grieg created distinctly Norwegian musical traditions. Political tensions with Sweden gradually intensified. Disputes over foreign policy representation, military arrangements, and constitutional interpretation created recurring crises. The growth of Norwegian national consciousness, democratic institutions, and economic independence made the Union increasingly untenable. Declared the Union dissolved following Sweden's harsh rejection of Norwegian demands for separate consular representation. The crisis reached its climax in 1905 when the Storting. After a tense standoff and referendum showing overwhelming support for independence, Sweden peacefully accepted Norwegian secession. Prince Karl of Denmark became King Haakon VII, and Norway embarked on full independence with optimism and democratic ideals. The early 20th century saw continued economic growth, social reforms, and political democratization. Universal suffrage was achieved in 1913, making Norway one of the first countries to grant women full voting rights. World War I tested Norwegian neutrality. Despite remaining officially neutral, Norway suffered significant losses to its merchant marine and faced economic challenges from the wartime blockade. The war's aftermath brought social upheaval, including the 1918 revolutionary crisis and the rise of the Labour Party as a major political force. The interwar period combined economic difficulties with democratic consolidation. The 1920s brought deflation and unemployment, while the 1930s depression hit Norway hard. However, the Labour Party's rise to power in 1935 under Johan Nygaardsvold introduced social democratic policies that would define modern Norwegian politics. Despite fierce resistance, particularly at Narvik, Norwegian and Allied forces were overwhelmed. Norway's neutrality policy continued into the late 1930s, but growing European tensions made this position increasingly difficult to maintain. Germany invaded Norway on April 9, 1940, ending neutrality and beginning 5 years of occupation. King Haakon VII and the government fled to London, maintaining legitimacy and organizing resistance. Vidkun Quisling, whose name became synonymous with collaboration, established a puppet government under German supervision. However, most Norwegians opposed the occupation through various forms of resistance, from underground newspapers to sabotage operations. The destruction of the German heavy water facility at Vemork prevented Nazi atomic bomb development. The occupation was brutal, with mass deportations, executions, and the near-complete destruction of the Norwegian Jewish population. The resistance movement, coordinated with the London government and British intelligence, maintained Norwegian national unity and prepared for liberation. Economic planning and state intervention characterized the Norwegian model. Liberation came in May 1945, with King Haakon's return symbolizing national renewal and democratic restoration. Oil revenues provided unprecedented wealth, but also raised questions about economic management and social cohesion. The government pension fund Global, funded by oil revenues, became the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. This decision reflected recognition that small state neutrality was no longer viable in the bipolar world order. Post-war Norway underwent dramatic transformation. The Labour Party dominated politics for decades, implementing ambitious social democratic policies. The welfare state expanded rapidly, providing universal health care, education, and social security. NATO membership in 1949 marked a decisive break with neutrality, aligning Norway with the Western Bloc during the Cold War. The discovery of oil in the North Sea in 1969 revolutionized Norway's economy and international position. Social democratic values persist despite global neoliberal trends, maintaining strong public sectors and extensive welfare provisions. The response emphasized openness, tolerance, and democratic resilience. Oil wealth transformed Norway into one of the world's richest countries per capita. This wealth enabled generous welfare benefits and high living standards while maintaining economic stability. European integration posed ongoing challenges. Norway rejected European Economic Community membership in 1972 and European Union membership in 1994, reflecting concerns about sovereignty and natural resource control. However, European Economic Area membership since 1994 provides most EU benefits while preserving formal independence. Beyond Ibsen and Grieg, figures like Knut Hamsun and Sigrid Undset won Nobel Prizes in literature, while explorers like Fridtjof Nansen and Roald Amundsen achieved polar fame. Political life has remained stable, with alternating labor and conservative-led governments. Contemporary challenges include climate change, immigration, and maintaining the welfare state amid an aging population. For centuries, Sami culture faced systematic suppression through forced assimilation policies. Norway has become a leader in renewable energy and environmental protection while managing the paradox of being a major oil producer advocating for climate action. The 2011 terrorist attacks by Anders Behring Breivik shocked Norwegian society but reinforced democratic values and social cohesion. The development of democratic institutions, social solidarity, and peaceful conflict resolution has created a society that consistently ranks among the world's happiest and most successful. Throughout its history, Norway has maintained a complex relationship with language and cultural identity. The linguistic landscape reflects historical power dynamics, with two official written forms of Norwegian emerging from centuries of Danish influence. Bokmål, evolved from Danish-influenced urban speech, coexists with Nynorsk, created by Ivar Aasen in the 19th century from rural dialects. This linguistic duality symbolizes broader tensions between cosmopolitan and rural values that continue to shape Norwegian society. Norwegian cultural achievements have consistently punched above the country's demographic weight. These achievements reinforced national pride during periods of political subordination and continue to influence Norway's international cultural diplomacy. The Sami people's experience illustrates both historical injustices and contemporary reconciliation efforts. The establishment of the Sami Parliament in 1989 and constitutional recognition of Sami rights represents ongoing efforts to address historical wrongs while preserving indigenous heritage within the modern Norwegian state. Norway's history reflects a remarkable journey from Viking raids to modern prosperity. While facing contemporary challenges, Norway's historical experience of overcoming adversity while maintaining cultural identity and democratic values provides a foundation for future adaptation and success. The Norwegian story demonstrates how geography, natural resources, and political choices interact to shape national development. From Viking expansion through medieval kingdoms, foreign rule, independence struggles, wartime occupation, and oil-fueled prosperity, Norway has maintained distinctive characteristics while adapting to changing circumstances. This historical trajectory has produced a modern nation that combines international engagement with fierce protection of sovereignty, economic success with social equality, and traditional values with progressive innovation.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more engaging historical content.